So this was recently voted the world's most beautiful gate. And I'd like to think that beyond being objectively beautiful, there's something about it, isn't it? It transports you maybe to a childhood memory, maybe like a fantastical place. But this kind of obsession that I have with gates has actually become a bit of a reality recently, because I've got an Instagram page called Rate That Gate, where people around the world, they send me photos of gates and I write about them and give them a rating. So it's all become a bit of an obsession. I've got 329 followers. I'm practically an influencer, basically. So, it's a thing that I'm interested in, but it all comes from this interest I have in this idea of liminality, which is basically the concept or the feeling that you get when you're moving from one place to another, be that real, be that conceptual. It's a state of being when you're at a threshold between two things. But in nature, this is actually a real thing. So where two biological ecosystems collide, that sort of space where they interlock is where you get the greatest biological diversity. It's a state of basically competition. It's also a creative concept. The Romantics were absolutely obsessed with this idea of liminality, whether it was about old meeting new, or whether it was about life meeting death, or whether it was just about being lost in nature. The idea that in this liminal space you can experience the sublime. And I think that is really what it's all about. That's what life's all about, isn't it? Stepping into the unknown, experiencing something you've maybe not experienced before, testing yourself. That's where I think you can be the most creative. That's where I think it's the interesting space in life. But obviously these thresholds in life often have a gate, a physical gate in the way. So that's why I'm sort of interested in them and interested in why they actually are more interesting and characterful than probably actually even give them credit for. So I live in Skipton. Gates can be ideas. Gates can be ideas. I live in Skipton, which is called the gateway to the Dales. I love this because it's basically a place that markets itself as being the entranceway to somewhere else. I love that idea. But the Golden Gate Bridge. Symbols. Gates can be symbols. The Brandenburg Gate was where Hitler and Napoleon stated their dominance over Germany. It was excluded to people from West Germany during the partition. It became a symbol of unity when the country was brought back together. Gates can also be statements. So the Great Gate of Babylon, which was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, was essentially just showing off about how wealthy the city was. The Great Gate of York, which used to be festooned with the heads of traitors, was all about saying to people what you'd expect when you went to that city. What about this one? The pearly gates. We're all familiar with that one. The idea that you're going to be judged if you meet that gate. Have I done enough to get in? Have I done enough to stay out? Is that the right thing to do? The ultimate bouncer. Or is gates literally about division? Is it about a barrier? That could be a real thing to protect property, agricultural property. Or when you consider it, 71% of British woodland lies behind locked gates. Maybe there's too many of these things in the world. Or are gates really just about a punishment? Dante's famous tale where he said, all ye who enter here abandon all hope, was probably what Anne Boleyn was thinking when she entered Traitor's Gate in the Tower of London to her doom. So, I like to add a bit of extra value to my presentation. So, if you want to email me after this, you can have this cut out and keep guide to gates. Pop that in your wallet. You'll be able to know what's coming around the corner. And Bill Gates obviously isn't a terrible joke. That was just a terrible joke. So if you think about a country walk as like a story, I think gates are like the punctuation in that story. They're the characters you meet along the way. And because of that, that's really why I like to write about them on my Instagram page. So here's a couple. What do you reckon about this one? I think it's a toothy old geriatric leaning left on weary hinges. There's a bit of an off-kilter toupee there. I think it's like smiling at you, welcoming you through that gateway. There's another one I met in Lincolnshire. This is one that was outside a church. I don't know, I like to think that this was maybe a cult that only ever worshipped the board game of Trivial Pursuit. And here's another one that I found on a hillside up behind the house, which, is kind of less of a gate and more of an existential question. It's kind of seemingly asking you, in an absurd world, what is the purpose of a gate? I love these characters. I think they're brilliant. But people, we have to be worried because there's an epidemic of galvanised monstrosities that are infesting our countryside. And I want you all today to get out there, protest against them, write to your MP, get rid of these things, get our characterful gates back. So 2 things I want to take away from this talk today. Number one, step across thresholds. Do stuff that isn't feeling normal to you. Go into some other space. That's where inspiration strikes. But also, look at the small things in life, because often they can be the most inspirational.